A man becomes invisible the moment he finds peace, not when he's rich, not when he's loud, not even when he's loved, but when he stops needing the world's permission to exist, when he stops looking for his reflection in a woman's eyes. That's when he disappears from society and finally appears to himself. That's when he becomes a ghost to the world and a god to his own life. Epicurus understood this not as rebellion, but as clarity. While the world tore itself apart over attention and validation, like stray dogs fighting for scraps, he slipped away, quietly, out the back door, into a garden, into silence, into a life where no woman's mood decided his morning, and no golden ring determined his worth. And here you are, a modern man standing in the rubble, not of cities, but of beliefs. Masculinity turned into a marketing scheme, solitude labeled a disorder, your freedom considered a warning sign. You've been programmed to believe that being alone makes you broken. But seriously, what kind of man believes he's only complete when someone else finishes his sentence? Who told you your wholeness had curves and a smile? You weren't born hungry for approval. That hunger was passed down like an old lie wrapped in a family story. You were taught to chase her validation, that your value is measured by how many women want you, how happy you can make them, how fast you can adapt to their expectations. You call it love. Epicurus would have called it madness, because the moment your purpose depends on someone else's recognition, you're not living, you're performing. But here's the part they don't teach you in school. A man who doesn't need applause, can't be manipulated, a man who is comfortable in silence, can't be blackmailed with loneliness, and a man who thrives while single, that man is dangerous, because he can't be bought, can't be baited, can't be broken. His peace isn't an act, it's armor. Epicurus didn't run from life. He refined it. He carved out a version of existence that didn't depend on seduction, on applause, on approval. He didn't hate women. He just refused to worship them. He saw that real pleasure doesn't live in the chase. It lives in the absence of chaos. That real comfort isn't found in her arms. It's found in not needing rescue at all. But look at us now, worshiping the idea of being chosen, praying for affection, trading away our dignity one coffee date at a time. We buy dinners we can't afford for women who don't care. We say yes when we mean no. We smile when we're breaking inside, and all of it just to avoid being alone. But that very thing, being alone, is what Epicurus embraced like a long-lost friend. Why? Because silence holds a mirror. And once the noise stops, you come face to face with the man you've been avoiding your whole life. Not the polished version, not the Instagram bio. The real man, the one with all the questions, the regrets, the untapped power. And yeah, that's terrifying. But that's exactly where you begin. Now listen closely, we're about to enter a space modern life tells men to avoid. The idea that your freedom is not a flaw, it's your final form. Because the truly single man, single in spirit, not just on paper, is not incomplete. He's rare, a different breed. He's the last man alive who knows how to breathe without begging for air. He doesn't wonder what he brings to the table, because he is the table. He's the chair. He's the room, the structure, the whole damn foundation of purpose itself. But let's be real, most men never make it there. They get stuck in the middle, wandering in the desert of desperation, mistaking thirst for purpose. They date to feel valuable, marry to feel validated, and then suffer under a mountain of expectations they were never built to carry. You can spot these men. You've seen them. They're the ones saying, happy wife, happy life, with dead eyes, domesticated, trained, neutered, wolves fetching slippers, lions in tuxedos, smiling for wedding photos. Epicurus would look at these men and weep, not because they failed, but because they never stopped to ask why they were running in the first place. This is where Epicurean thinking becomes a scalpel. Sharp, unforgiving, honest. He didn't say, avoid women, he said, avoid unnecessary disturbance. And in today's world, where relationships are a full-time job of emotional expectations, constant texting, social surveillance, financial entanglement, and identity dilution. How can you ever claim peace if her approval controls your sense of worth? That's not manhood. That's butlerhood. You're not a partner. You're staff in an invisible palace. Epicurus wrote, "The wealth required by nature is limited and easy to procure. The wealth required by vain ideals endless." Now reread that, but replace wealth with love. And suddenly you understand why so many men are exhausted. You're not tired because you're single. You're tired because your version of love demands that you slice yourself into pieces just to feel wanted. So you shrink, you bend, you make yourself smaller, easier, more agreeable just to fit into some box you didn't even build. And worse, you think this self-mutilation is noble? You think it's love, but it's not. It's you tossing your map into the ocean just to hear someone say, "You're going the right way." You're tired because you gave up the wheel just so you wouldn't have to drive alone. Epicurus didn't just say no to that, he exposed it. He lived differently surrounded by men, not to escape women, but to find clarity. He talked philosophy under trees, grew his own food, chose pleasures that didn't enslave him. The irony, he found more joy in less, more stability in solitude than most men find in decades of marriage. The modern world calls that weird, but maybe the modern world is just sick. So now I ask you, not as a guru, but as a fellow man, have you ever truly been alone? Have you ever brewed your morning coffee and thought not of who should be next to you, but of what's still inside you? If you haven't, then brother, your singleness isn't a curse, it's your last chance. The moment you stop romanticizing your dependency, you begin reclaiming your dignity. You begin the descent beyond slogans, beyond the soft lies you wrap around your heart like blankets from childhood into the marrow of why single men thrive and why most never will. Because thriving, real thriving, isn't just smiling while surviving. It isn't comfort disguised as chemistry. It's conquering the storm inside you. And this is where most men lose the battle, not because they're weak, but because no one ever taught them that stillness is strength. You know what's crazy? Most men never choose to be alone. They just end up there, like a layover they didn't book. Like silence is something they tolerate, not treasure. But here's the thing, if you didn't choose it, you never claimed it, you're not single, you're just waiting. For what? Her text. Her yes, her to finally notice the version of you that you dressed up for approval. That's not solitude. That's limbo. Epicurus didn't see singleness as a pause. He saw it as a practice, a philosophy, a fire that burns away the excess until only what matters remains. He knew that peace doesn't arrive when the right woman enters your life. It shows up when you stop needing one to begin. Think about it. If your entire sense of being is built around whether someone else chooses you, are you living or just auditioning? Modern culture doesn't help either. Everywhere you turn, you're told that your singleness is a problem to be fixed, a glitch in the matrix of adulthood. You hit 30 and suddenly your family's asking when you're settling down like you're a stray dog looking for a home. Settle down. Why you spent your whole life trying to rise up. But they don't get it because they're measuring life by checkboxes, marriage, mortgage, minivan. And if you don't check those boxes, they think you failed. But here's what Epicurus knew. The only real failure is living someone else's blueprint. See, the modern world wants you busy chasing women, status, and shallow comfort, because a man distracted is a man controlled. But Epicurus was a rebel in the quietest way possible. He just walked away from noise, from need, from all the performances we mistake for love. He built his life around depth, not drama, simplicity, not stimulation. And maybe the scariest part, he was happy. Now ask yourself, have you ever just been not performed, not posted, not persuaded, just existed in your own space without trying to earn it? Most haven't. Because we were raised to perform, be charming, be agreeable, be useful, and when you're not, you feel invisible. But here's the paradox: the moment you stop performing, you become powerful. You stop needing to be seen and start seeing yourself. This is the secret the world hides under dating advice and TikTok trends. The strongest men are the ones who no longer crave validation. You think you're being romantic when you give everything, but let's be real half the time. It's a transaction. You buy her time with attention. You buy her affection with compliance. You tell her what she wants to hear in hopes that she'll fill the void no one else sees. But that's not love. That's a lease. And when your lease is up, when the compliments dry up or the money runs low, guess what, you're out? Because you weren't being loved. You were being rented. Epicurus. He didn't play that game. He chose friends over flings, gardens over gossip, purpose over performance. And he thrived, not because he was antisocial, but because he knew that peace isn't built in the approval of others. It's built in the ownership of self. Look at most relationships today. Are they grounded, or are they just emotional bartering systems? She praises your effort. You ignore her moods. You hold your tongue. She holds your hand. It's mutual manipulation disguised as romance. And we call that normal. But you're tired, not because you're alone, but because you keep giving parts of yourself away to be seen as enough. You bend, you edit, you erase, until one day, you look in the mirror and don't recognize the man staring back. And still, you go back. Back to the apps, back to the cycles, back to the fake smiles and first dates, and hope that maybe this time, it'll stick. But what if the reason it never sticks is because you've never stuck with yourself? This is the Epicurean challenge. Be still, be alone, be honest, because only in stillness does the truth rise. And the truth is, most of what you call love is just fear in a tuxedo. Fear of silence, fear of insignificance, fear of facing yourself without a buffer. And here's the twist: the man who faces himself fully, raw, unfiltered, becomes unbreakable. Because once you're no longer afraid of being alone, you become uncontrollable. That's why the thriving single man isn't bitter. He's dangerous. Not because he hates women, but because he doesn't need them. He doesn't chase affection. He selects connection. Big difference. And when he does choose love, if he does, it's not to complete him. It's to complement him. This man isn't rushing into partnerships for identity. He already has one. He isn't looking for someone to fix him. He's whole. And that's rare, because wholeness doesn't come from romance. It comes from radical self-confrontation. You want to thrive as a single man? Then stop treating it like a punishment. Stop thinking you're broken because you're not in a relationship. You're only broken if your peace depends on someone else's presence. You're not missing out. You're tuning in. And that tuning, that focus, it's where greatness begins. Look at history. The deepest thoughts, the biggest breakthroughs, they weren't born from couples retreats. They came from solitude, from detachment, from men who were willing to walk alone long enough to find themselves on the other side. Marcus Aurelius didn't write meditations at a double date. Da Vinci didn't sketch inventions between candlelit dinners. Epicurus didn't unlock peace while chasing textbacks. They withdrew. They refined. They built. So now I ask you, what are you building? Because if you're not building yourself, then you're building someone else's dream. And that dream might cost you your soul. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with love, but there's something deeply wrong with needing it to feel real. That's why Epicurus warned of all the things that wisdom provides for the happiness of the whole life. By far the most important is friendship. Not lust, not romance. Friendship, the kind that holds you accountable, that mirrors your soul without selling it. But what did we do? We traded brotherhood for hookups, depth for dopamine, and now we're addicted to attention that doesn't even satisfy. We say we want connection, but we fear being seen, so we perform, we posture, we pretend, until the whole thing collapses. So let me ask you again, Not as a coach or a guru, but as a brother in arms. Have you ever truly sat with yourself, not as a placeholder for a relationship, but as a foundation for your future? Because until you do that, you're not really single. You're just in waiting. And waiting men waste their lives, but grounded men, intentional men, men who don't outsource their purpose to the opinions of others, they thrive. Not in spite of being alone, but because of it. Being too nice doesn't mean you're weak. In fact, it often means you care deeply, so deeply that you'd rather hurt yourself than disappoint others. But here's the truth. You can be kind without abandoning yourself. You can be generous without being taken for granted. You can be empathetic without becoming a doormat. The first step is simple, but not easy. Start telling the truth. No is a full sentence. You don't owe anyone an explanation for honoring your limits. You don't have to say yes just to keep the peace, because every time you betray your own needs, you chip away at your own peace. And yes, some people will get upset when you stop overgiving. They're not used to your boundaries because you train them not to expect any. But the ones who truly care about you, not just the favors, will stay. The rest, let them go. This is the hidden cost of being too nice. You end up living everyone's life, except your own. So this is your invitation. Not to be cold or selfish or harsh, but to be real, to be honest, to be whole. Because the world doesn't need more people pleasers. It needs more people with the courage to show up fully as themselves.